Let's go.
This is turning into one of the weirdest shows I've ever done. It really is.
Catch me if you can, goddammit. Catch me if you can. You hear me?
Will Noonan's so funny and I'm after him, so I guess I'm after Noonan.
You're listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to Hypothetically with Will Noonan. That's me coming at you from my apartamento today. I'm just standing in my room doing this podcast into the mic like I'm on stage. I'm walking, I'm standing, I'm holding it. I'm going to try something new, then do it in the car. And it's a lot of fun, I'll tell you that. I love my new place, living in South Boston full time. It's really nice. I overhear a lot of really funny things on the street, being back in the city all the time. It's one of my favorite things in life, by the way, is to overhear something. I think that's one of the great gifts. Gifts, not a moving image, but a gift from the universe is always overhearing a funny conversation. I remember one I heard that I actually sent into the Greg Fitzsimmons podcast, which has a section called Overheard. So if I overhear a real gem, I'll send it to Fitzsimmons. And he said it on his show. It was one of my favorites. I was in a Dunkin' Donuts. It's often in a Dunkin' Donuts. I'm in a Dunkin' Donuts, and this woman comes in, and she orders an iced coffee. And then she asks for a hot coffee, right? And then the coffee's too hot, so she starts taking some of the ice cubes out of the iced coffee and putting them in the hot coffee, right? And the clerk at Dunkin' Donuts sort of noticed this, and she was like, "Oh, I could have given you some ice cubes, and the way he's like, "Nah, it's fine." And then the girl, just trying to keep the conversation going, I guess, a little bit, maybe joking around, she was like, "Well, I hope you don't have poop on your hands." Right? That's where I was like, huh? And then the woman goes, "Oh, well, this coffee's from my husband. He's a fireman, and his mouth's on my butt all the time." And she had a little kid there with her and everything, and I was just like, wow. First of all, why'd you mention he was a fireman? That's an interesting thing to throw in there. I guess, is it known that firemen like to eat asshole, eat the butt? I thought that was interesting. Secondly, I thought it was interesting that's why, immediately she went to oh, we do a lot of crazy sex things, and they all involve poop. So don't worry, Dunkin' Donuts girl. Just thought it was a real winner of one. But the one I heard the other day that I really liked was I'm coming out of the supermarket here in Southie, and there's a group of three, a girl, a guy, and kind of a big guy. So it's two, and they were all kind of I would guess either heavy drinkers or maybe drug users. But I don't want to judge them, but they were salty street types, and they're having a conversation. I'm behind them, and the girl, this is one of those things that makes me laugh. The girl goes, "I'm so embarrassed that I said that this morning." And the guy's like, "Huh?" And she's like, "That thing I said this morning, I can't stop thinking about it. I've been thinking about it all day." And the guy goes, hey, it's all right. Listen, you said something silly, and you feel bad about it. And, it'll work itself out. No one's judging you. It's going to be fine. And maybe I'm not fully projecting what happened, but it was so fucking funny because this girl was probably 25, 26, 7 years old. Who knows, right? But she was clearly trying to process some type of emotion she had never experienced before. And the way she talked, it sounded like she had never even pondered something for more than a few minutes. And the fact that she was stuck on something mentally all day was this weird trip for her. And that's what made me laugh. As someone who can think about one thing for days at a time, and like obsess over it, and just like I was like, it's almost like I'm almost jealous of her. She just embarrassed this one thing she said. I'm like, dude, sometimes I'm laying in bed at night, I can think of embarrassing shit I said fucking 10 years ago. Still thinking about it. I've been thinking about it like all day. It's fucking driving me crazy. Hey, you said something silly, and you regret it. It's what happens, And then they kind of went to the third guy, who was like the big guy for some sort of like, right? And he was just like, yeah, I'm hungry, guys. You want to go get something? Like, he was like, this is too fucking deep. I remember, that's always kind of the sign of someone who's not like a deep thinker, is when like you're talking about something that's not very deep at all, and they're like, that's a little deep for me, man. It's a little deep. Always makes me laugh. So what's been going on, man? I got a lot going on. I'm filming another German movie coming up this weekend. I'm back on German television, everybody. Small role. I'll only be filming one day, this Saturday, but I'm pretty excited about it. Got a fitting tomorrow. Getting back into the swing of things here. Summer's wrapping up. I've said it a million times in this podcast, but summer is the most boring time of the year for a comedian. There's not a lot going on, not a ton of stuff to keep us busy. I'm lucky I do a little bit of acting, and sometimes some acting work comes along in the summer, but it's not like it's totally... I've done a few things this summer, but it's been pretty slow, which in a weird way is what I wanted. I think I said that many times on this podcast. I was like, I'm going to take it easy this summer. Been working hard at this thing for 10 years. I finally had probably the best year of my career last year, money-wise, and I'm going to relax a little bit in this new apartment. And just take it easy and just stop and smell the roses. And now I'm realizing that is good, and it does some good things, but it kind of makes me a little stir-crazy. I do best when I'm busy, when I'm running around, doing a lot of shows, and, that's like the most fun thing to do is do shows, so. And I have been doing a lot of shows, but, like, I do Capo on Mondays in Southie, which is like a real show with a real crowd, and, that's where it's really at. Like, I love doing bar shows, and I love doing small, kind of hip, alternative rooms, but there's nothing like getting in front of, like, a real audience, making them really laugh, and getting that juice out of them. Pumps up your blood vessels and just makes you fucking psyched and happy. You know what I mean? I've been trying to quit smoking or cut down to the point where I can quit easily, and that is not easy, my friends. That is not an easy task. Yesterday I made it all the way to like 7:40 p.m. before I had a cigarette, which was not that hard, but today I only made it to like 3 p.m. So I don't know how it works. I don't know how like quitting smoking mentally works, but I'll tell you, it's fucking weird. Like, you feel tired when you're not smoking. If you smoke a lot, you feel kind of out of it, but not in a good way. But I definitely am pretty determined this time to give up smoking once and for all. It's just a bad look, man. I'm not enjoying it anymore as much. I don't feel like it's looking as cool as it used to look. Now it's just like a habit, just a bad habit. It used to kind of be more of like, hey, I'm James Dean over here. Hey, I'm Dave Attell. I'm a comic. I'm smoking. But I've definitely noticed like more and more people are just like appalled by it. Society has changed away from the smoker. People just aren't into it anymore. I especially feel that when I'm on Twitch. It's like I've been doing my Twitch broadcasts and live streaming on Twitch. I'm on there for hours sometimes, and when I smoke a butt, it's almost always like in the chat, like, what are you doing smoking? Oh my God, like, smoking sucks. And obviously this is like the younger generation talking to me, so all that anti-smoking fucking education they got in high school definitely works, because they all hate it. But they're brutal about it. They're like, what, do you want to kill yourself? What are you, suicidal? Here's a suicide hotline. If you're smoking, you must want to kill yourself. I'm like, Jesus, guys. Didn't any of you have like a fucking cool uncle who smoked? What's up? But But man, let me tell you, those Twitch chatters, they can be fucking brutal to me. They can be brutal to each other. It might be one of the most raw dog fucking areas of the internet that's not 4chan. But there is a 4chan influence on Twitch. You can like feel it. But I don't know. I have a good time doing it. I love my Twitch streams. And the last one I did was very successful. You can always check these out at twitch.tv/Will Noonan. If I'm on, I'm on. But if I'm not on, the old videos are there. You can check them out. You can jump around. You know, you can do all kinds of things. Speaking of quitting smoking, I'm coming up tomorrow will be the 8-year anniversary of quitting drinking for me, which is pretty cool. It's weird though, man. I'll tell you, it's really weird. If anyone else out there has ever quit something like that, it gets harder and harder every year to like remember what it was really like and what it was like, what was going through your mind when you quit and how bad it was that made you want to quit, or everything. It just gets a little, it's memory, human memory is a very weird, tricky fucking thing. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm not saying this like, you know, I fucking think about drinking all the time now or something, but it's just different. I used to really sort of know the day on the calendar and sort of like watch for it and be like, wow, I'm almost there and all this stuff. And now it just kind of like comes around. I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like, oh shit, tomorrow's the day. And then you try and kind of ponder on it a little bit and it's just not there as much as it used to be. And it's kind of weird. You know, it's also funny. I've set like this precedent of myself as like a non-drinker. And sometimes that feels a little weird too, because, you know, when I quit drinking, I never like really knew how long I was going to be quitting for. I never knew if I was going to be quitting for, you know, a month, a year, 6 years. I had no idea how long I was going to go. 8 years, I've already like really surpassed a lot of the time I thought I was going to do. I feel like really good about it. And I like not drinking, but sometimes I think about what if I ever wanted to start drinking again. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. But that is one of the things, you know. Sometimes I wonder the more work I do, like with, you know, just meditating and other things, I'm like, was that the problem, or did I have other problems, and just sort of jump on it with that, which still makes it a problem too. Like if I was self-medicating with booze and that was like my go-to, I'll probably still do that again, you know, because I think really deep down my issue is I'm just a worrier, or I'm like hyperactive or something, because sometimes I just get, you know, drinking or not drinking, sometimes I just get too worried. I just get something in my mind and I can't stop sort of thinking about it and rolling it over and just sort of going deeper and deeper and thinking about all these worst case scenarios and stuff like that. And it's, you know, it can be a lot. And I don't think I'm alone in this fact. I think most comedians are like this, and I think a lot of people in America, especially these days, are like that too. And I think younger me, the younger version of me, would deal with that by just getting hammered, forgetting about it, and moving on. But, you know, of course it led to like getting hammered all the time, making an ass out of myself, pretty much getting sick from all that drinking. So I'm not in a big hurry to drink again, and it's not something I think about all the time. But every now and then I'll sit around and I'll think about, you know, what if I did want to start drinking again? And that's sort of like a problem of its own, because if I ever wanted to start again, people would definitely be weirded out in a lot of ways. Like, because not only because I've talked about how bad it was so many times on so many radio shows and so many podcasts, and on stage even sometimes, and to my friends, like it just comes up once in a while when someone's like, why don't you drink? And you're like, oh, well, I quit. And they're like, why? And then you're like, well, yeah, I went pretty nuts there when I was 26 and drank like for a month straight and just like got all fucked up. And then they're like, well, it sounds like you should have quit. And you're like, yeah. But, you know, I'm still a human being with a brain, so sometimes I'm like, is 8 years like enough time to know if like you could do it or not, or is 8 years, should I just keep going, you know? And that's where I usually end up. I'm like, just keep going, just don't drink. If you look at life when you were drinking and life not drinking, things have gotten much better. Things have been a lot more fun. But you know what it is? It's you drinkers out there. You make it look fun sometimes. And when you're, like I said earlier, when you're getting farther and farther and farther away from having drank and been a drinker and quit, you kind of like forget that you weren't the best at it, or you could sometimes overdo it, or how even how a hangover felt. You know what I mean? Like for the first couple years, I think like I got myself through a lot of those moments by thinking like, hey, you know, I feel so much better now. Like all the time I feel so much better because I don't drink. Like health-wise, I feel so much better. So like for the first couple years, it really like never even crossed my mind to drink. I was like, I don't want to, man. Like life is so much better now. And believe me, life is better now too. I'm doing good. Got a nice new place. Got a fucking car. You know, paying the bills. Everything's fine. So let's fuck it all up. Let's blow it up. But it's just something, I don't want anyone to freak out. Like I said earlier, not like thinking about drinking again, especially anytime soon. I think I'd rather make it to 10 years before I even really seriously considered trying it again, or maybe never. Maybe never. That's kind of like where I'm at mentally. 10 years or never. One or the other. I can't quite decide which one I want to do. But I guess the point of this whole digression is like, if after 10 years I want to start drinking again, or, you know, not getting shit-faced again or being a drunk again, but just casually kind of enjoying a cocktail or a glass of wine or something like that, is it A, going to like cause me to revert back to crazy drinker that I once was? Or B, maybe even more important than A, is it going to alarm my friends and family and the people in my life? You know, I don't want that either. I don't want anyone to be worried. I don't want anyone to freak out. But I feel like 10 years is like, that's a long time to really work on yourself and stuff like that. But I know a couple comedians who have taken long breaks like that and started up again and turned out okay. But I also know people who didn't, like Keith Robinson, who I don't know him, but I know of him. I think he didn't drink for like 15, 20 years, and then he started drinking again, and he was fine with it. He wasn't like having drinking problems, but he did end up having a stroke like a year after he started drinking again. I know two guys in Rhode Island, though, who, like, you know, were guys like me who just gave it up and because it was getting in the way. And then after, like, 5-6 years, they were like, you know what, I think I'm all right to have a drink from time to time, and they went back to it. So those things just cause me to sort of think sometimes. I'm like, what is the correct course of action? Do I really want to go the rest of my life? That's another problem probably with like quitting at a young age, like 26. You're like, am I going to do this forever? I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't even really want to. Like, it's not like something that's always on my mind. But every now and then you watch some people having a good laugh and acting like kids. And you're like, I get that. I get that with weed, but you just never fully like goof it up like a drunk person does. But I also kind of feel like these are stupid, dumb guy thoughts. Like, these are the type of thoughts like that dumb guys have. Like, they're like, you know what? That guy, he should drink because he's having a good time right now. So if I drink, I'll have a good time. But I forget what it would kind of be like. But I was also like 26, freaking out about my life, like, because I was broke all the time and living in New York City. I was like ultra lonely because like I didn't like my friends anymore, so I didn't want to hang out with them. Yeah, things were just really bad back then. Like, I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't in a good comedy scene. I was in a good comedy scene, but I wasn't with the good people. I wasn't, like, hanging out with great people. I didn't have, like, a good support system around me. But at the same time, I didn't drive back then either. That would be a big worry of mine if I ever did drink again, would be the driving aspect, because I drive a lot. And I'm already like as you know from this podcast, I have some issues sometimes with the tickets and stuff like that. Couldn't imagine being a drunk driver. And not to mention, I like being thin, and I like being in shape, and I like the lack of, fucking fat chubbiness that a drinker has. So there are multiple reasons, yes and no. But anyway, tomorrow will mark 8 years. But in case you want to know where my head's at on drinking, that's where it is. And also, the other thing is, I'm thinking about doing another podcast, How to Quit Drinking and Still Be Cool, because I get a lot of people asking me about it. And that's another reason I probably, won't do it ever again, because I do like helping people who are having a hard time with booze. It's one of my favorite things, actually, to do, is talk to people and maybe, take them to a meeting or something, or just talk to people when they're in that raw state of just being fed up with drinking, and it does kind of bring me back there and make me feel good. And I just think it's a good thing you can do for the world, because I remember when I was going through that, the people who helped me were like saints, and I would definitely want to, I love helping people like that. So I figured doing the podcast could be a good way to do it, but I'm like, I don't want to do that and then casually start drinking again, like right after, and be like, how to quit drinking and still be cool? Just keep drinking. So that might not work. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. Speaking of Germans, the Nazi party is coming back. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's fucking ridiculous and stupid that it even is happening. I kind of think it's not as big of a movement as maybe the media wants you to think right now, because it's all, it's always kind of been the dark secret of America that we have the KKK and things like that. But I can't fucking believe somewhat average Joes now are joining up in this shit. But it just has, it says more about how fucking stupid and fucked up the internet is right now, and 4chan, and just the echo chambers people get themselves into. That's a big part of it. You find a group of people who either think the way you do or think the way you want to think, and then you just only listen to them, you only talk to them, and before you know it, you're fucking crazy. Like, crazy person whose opinions are just other people's opinions, just fed to you. And it's a very quick way to find yourself in, like, an angry mob holding tiki torches and with your face on the news. But it's fucking stupid. No race is superior to any other race. It's just the outside. I don't know. I mean, that's so corny, but, like, I know, I've met enough people in my life. I've met thousands of people, and I've met dickheads. I've met nice people. I've met heroes, and all races, all people are all pretty much fucking, it's their brain. It's their personality. It's their upbringing. All these things kind of have something to do with who they are and what they end up being. It doesn't fucking matter if you're white. I know lots of white pieces of shit. Go to fucking Methadone Mile in Boston if you want to see some white pieces of shit just hanging out. There's plenty of them. And they're just as much of like a fucking parasite on society as whatever these Nazis think black people are. It pisses me off. I have a lot of, black friends who I love very much, and I would think that this is in the past, and the fact that it's even on the news again is it's disconcerting, but it seems like people seem to be on the right side. But that's another thing. I live in Massachusetts. It's super fucking easy to believe everything's like perfect up here because it's a pretty nice place to live and pretty liberal. So I enjoy it a lot. What was I going to say? Weather in Boston is kind of a bummer right now, I'll tell you that, man. It's a fucking bummer. That's another reason why I think I quit drinking on August 16th, because I hate August. It's like my least favorite month of the year. Hate it. Always drives me a little bit cuckoo. It's too hot. Even though it hasn't been super hot lately, it's been muggy. Muggy, I have a feeling, is kind of like a northeastern colloquialism, but mugginess is like when the humidity makes you sweat when you're not doing anything. That's what I can't take. I don't mind. I love working up a sweat. I love working out. I love going out there and fucking running, breaking a sweat, man. I love doing that shit, man. But when it comes to fucking just sitting in a chair or waiting to go on stage, my mustache gets all sweaty and my fucking like back gets sweaty and you can just feel like sweat coming out of you for no reason. It just doesn't agree with me in some weird way. I don't know why. I fucking hate it. So I always get a little squirrely in August. It's also like the slowest month of the year for comedians. So I got a lot of time to just sit around and be mugged. Be mugged by the mugginess. Just sweating balls. Muggy. It reminds me of my mom. She used to say, it's muggy today. It's muggy. It's one of the worst types of weather that there is, man. Mugginess. I had a good week last week, though. I went down to Quincy, Massachusetts, did a show at Maggie's Lounge. It's a very cool fucking show that Greg, I'm going to fuck up his last name, like Greg Tegelis, and his buddy Bill do together. It's the second time I've done it. Maggie's Lounge has been there for a long time. I remember when I was a kid driving by there and just being like, what goes on in that place? What is the deal with that place? And now I know. I go there. It's a very cool sort of homey type bar. Like you feel like someone converted a house into a bar. I really like that about it. And they do a really good show there. It's very interesting. It's got stand-up comedy aspects. It's got musical aspects. It's got improvisational aspects. And that's something I always enjoy, being part of kind of a variety show. It reminds me of being in old-fashioned show business or something. I like to mix with the other people and see what kind of art other people are creating and doing. It's fun, you know? So I'm there and I'm watching the Improv, and I always like it. And I saw a lot of people that I knew there from the Improv Asylum. And it's funny to me because I think I've talked about this briefly on the podcast before, but they have a show that they do at Laugh Boston and Improv Asylum called Standup Prov, where a stand-up comedian goes up, does a bunch of their material, does some jokes, whatever. Then the improvisers come out and do improvs based on that material. It's pretty fucking cool to watch your jokes kind of come to life in that way. I think you do that a couple times, 2 or 3 times, and then one of them does stand-up, which is one of them does stand-up, which they don't normally do, and then you do improv with them, which you don't normally do. So everyone's kind of getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, which is a lot of fun. So I really like doing that show. I've done it like 3 or 4 times, maybe even more. And I've done it with a bunch of different groups, but I really like it. Improv was always my favorite class in acting school, and I think I'm pretty decent at it, you know? I enjoy myself. I can get the zingers in there. I think pretty fast on my feet. But yeah, it was really cool to kind of see them doing improv, not at like the official Improv Asylum banner, just doing their own thing. Like, you don't think of them as sort of individuals sometimes when you only see them on these, club teams. But they get out there, man. They get out there and they do their shit. I don't really have like a harshness against improv. Excuse me. A lot of comedians do. A lot of comedians like fucking hate improv because at the beginning, when you're doing a lot of open mics, you are sitting through some pretty bad fucking improv shows and seeing a lot of bad improv, and you're like, ugh, this is garbage, right? But But, you know, you see some good improv sometimes, and you're like, oh, it can be a lot of fun. And if you've never tried it before, you don't understand how fun it can be. But that's another sort of line on stand-up that a lot of people do. On improv. They're like, improv, fun to do, horrible to watch. Yeah, kinda. But if the people are good, and it's funny. But the personality differences between improvisers and stand-up comedians is always super fucking hilarious to me. Like, again, comedians tend to be socially awkward, socially anxious, loners. You'll often see a comedian talking to himself in a parking lot before a show, or pacing, taking deep breaths. I see that all the time in stand-up comedy, especially like with people who aren't like professional full-time paid comics, like, you know, just up and coming or haven't quite quit the day job yet type guys. You'll always see them sort of pacing and taking deep breaths and getting ready, and, or just looking fucking miserable. Sometimes you'll see a comedian, and I don't want to say all stand-ups are like this. A lot of stand-ups are super fun guys, and a lot of stand-ups are fucking like, you know, just fucking regular fucking Joes. But, you know, there's stereotypes of both, right? So you'll see a lot of comedians are hard to talk to off stage. They can be grumpy. They can be a little bit, definitely a little bit of a loner type. Don't want to mix with the people. But improv, the exact polar fucking opposite. People just come out swinging. They're all friends. They they like smile and laugh and like do fun things before the show. I show up to the club and there's just like this group of like 6 people comes out who I don't recognize. Maybe not 6 is small. I'd say 10 to 12. And they're all super happy, and they're all kind of young and attractive, and they're like laughing and joking around. And I'm like, what the fuck is this crew? And then I found out they were an improv group, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. They look like a bunch of Mormon kids who just got off a bus, like full of Mountain Dew, and they're like, yeah, baby, I'm filled with the power of the Lord. It's that kind of like funness that they have. So that's like always a glaringly obvious like difference to me. I'm like, oh man, like stand-ups, we could have a little more fun. Our fun is more like smoking cigarettes and making fun of each other, just in the right way, sort of breaking balls. Like that's sort of stand-up fun. Like improv fun is like, let's all go out back, stand in a circle, and see who can do the best impression of their parents. And like not one of them is like, that's lame. They're all like, great idea, let's do it. That's how they are. But it's funny, I've known a lot of people who have chosen improv as like their thing, and then when I meet them and hang out with them, I'm like, you're fucking, you would have been a great comic if you wanted to do comedy. Like, they're funny. A lot of them are very funny guys. It's just kind of like their choice. They chose not to do the solo thing with stand-up. But it's also funny to me how many people, they're like afraid of stand-up in this weird way. Like, you know, they're like, I could never do that. Stand-up, I would never do that. It's so crazy. I don't know how you do it. It's so crazy. I would never do it. Stand-up. Oh my God, it's crazy. I'm kind of like, well, it's what I love to do, and it doesn't scare me at all. It's not much of a great answer for them, but it is what it is. Like, I love stand-up, and it's my favorite time of the day, being on stage. To each his own, I guess you would say. But they're all good people. I really like the Improv Asylum crew. I don't know as many people at Improv Boston as I used to, but they're all good fucking guys, man. Good fucking guys and girls over there. Not at all muggy in either one of those venues. It's totally fucking cool. Hold on one sec. Okay, I'm back. Let's talk about some of the old episodes, like the last 2 weeks. Because the last 2 episodes, I should say, they were fucking killers. They fucking did awesome download numbers. But, you know, Zach A. and Mike Bain from the last 2 episodes. Me and Mike Bain did a 2-hour episode, which I've never done before. Excuse me, I'm burping. I got a lot of gas today. I'm feeling a little bloated today. Me and Mike Bain had a 2-hour conversation, which I have never done on this podcast. We could have gone easily another 2 hours, but I'm glad we didn't because I almost broke my fucking computer just uploading the 2-hour WAV file and editing it. I had to delete so much shit on my laptop that I almost fucking broke it. But we got the episode out, and you guys loved it. And before that was the Zach A episode. And Zach was a guy I had to have on the podcast. Like, everywhere I was going, people were asking me about him for like a couple weeks. Did I know him? Did I know the stories about him? What's up with this guy? Everyone wanted to talk about Zach A. And then, like, I had him on the show, and he was crazy. I mean, I think he's a good guy and all that stuff, but he was crazy. He came over here in a fucking Speedo. We'd never met before. He brought a professional fighter with him. And we sat down and had a crazy long, well, not crazy long, just an hour, but we had a crazy conversation where he was sort of all over the place and contradicting himself at times, making a lot of sense at times, sort of two different men. I feel like he kind of is at war with himself sometimes, and that's what makes him a compelling individual and like a good podcast. But man, did people really respond to that episode? Shitloads of downloads, continues to get shitloads of downloads. It's definitely the one people have been coming up to me and talking about out there when they see me. And yeah, man, the Zach A, we're gonna have him back on for sure. Do a follow-up. He's back in town. I know he moved down to New York, but did not like it too much and moved right back pretty quickly. I was talking to someone the other day who left New York after 2 hours. So I think Zach made it longer than them, but I knew someone who moved down there, and after 2 hours was like, fuck this city. I can't take it. I love New York, but I don't know if I could ever live there again, to be honest. I just went down about a month ago to do the Kumia show, which I love doing. I love doing the Kumia show. I went down there to do it, and it was a hot, late July day, and I was just like, this city is straight up oppressive. It's beautiful in the fall. It's not bad in the winter. But man, when it's fucking hot out there and muggy, New York mug, it's fucking brutal. It's a brutal city. And it's also just a tough city. Boston really spoils you. It's a big city, but we got quiet sections. We got trees everywhere. It's spread out. But we still got all the things a big city has. We got sports. We got fucking restaurants. We got all kinds of different eclectic neighborhoods. Things to do, stuff like that. Like, Boston fucking rules. And then you go to New York and you're like, this city is, one of the greatest cities on earth. That's undeniable. You can feel it. It's huge. It's got a great power. But man, I feel like it's kind of a young person's city, or definitely a drinking city. That's another. I quit drinking right after I moved back from New York, which I think was a good move. But the people who live there drink a lot. It can be tough to sort of see that when you're living there. But I just noticed the culture of drinking in New York is crazy, like, popular. And I think it's because it's just such a stressful place to even be in. To even walk, like, from one street to the next, you pass a town's full of people. A small New England town's worth of folks just in a 10-minute walk. It really is like a nutso place. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe I lived there for 9 years. I don't know how I survived it. Oh, I kind of did it. I almost didn't. But it is just like a crazy, big smorgasbord. And it's also probably that when I do Kumi, I go to his studio, which is like right in Midtown, right in Hell's Kitchen, near Hell's Kitchen, which are two of like the craziest areas in the city. So it's not like I'm just strolling around the Upper West Side, which I used to always refer to as the most Boston section of New York. But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on New York City, but sometimes I find that place a bit daunting, and I'm not really feeling the urge to go back. I know I've been beating this horse to death on the podcast when I was spending basically a whole year trying to decide whether or not I was going to move back to New York City or not, and I decided to stay here in Boston. I'm pretty sure I made the right decision. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm really happy here. I like the shows here. I like the crowds here. I like my life here. And the only thing keeping me, the only thing giving me doubt was like, but in New York, I could become a more famous comedian. And that used to kind of eat at me. But then I worked with enough famous comedians and saw my friends become like semi-famous comedians. And I realized it's not really all you thought it was going to be. It's not really like such a great lifestyle. It's a lot of work. It's not a lot of free time. It's a lot of, doing things you don't feel like doing. And I think I just realized I'm the kind of guy who just likes a little more of a laid-back existence. I'm still a comedian. I still love performing. I still love having fans. I still do a podcast, all that stuff. But New York's just a little intense, man. My buddy Andrew Schultz, who's very happy there, born and raised New Yorker, and he's a celebrity, and he's doing great. But I can tell he enjoys that life. He enjoys fame. He enjoys having a lot of eyes on him, and he enjoys being super busy and traveling on planes every weekend and doing that kind of thing. And I just sort of got a little close to that life, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. And that's kind of a valuable insight. Like, a lot of people fight to get famous, and then they get it, and they're kind of like, this wasn't what I thought, and I'm kind of unhappy, and I kind of wish I could just go back to being an anonymous fuck. And sometimes, I get pulled in either direction. Sometimes I see a guy I know on TV, and I'm like, I wish I was on TV right now. But then I think about it. I'm like, no, that guy had to fly all over the place. He had to stay in a bunch of hotels alone. He had to fucking worry about this TV appearance for months. He probably had an ulcer. I know what he's like off stage. He's probably angry. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like different stuff going on. So I kind of feel like today in 2017, you can be whoever you want to be because of the internet. And I'm a pretty happy guy, man. Doing my shows here in Boston. Doing my podcast. I got my friends here. I got a great network of like bookers that I'm working with, and not really seeing any reason to leave. All I ever wanted as a kid growing up who wanted to be a comedian was to just be full-time. And I thought you had to be famous to be full-time, and now I'm not famous and I am full-time, and I'm like, of course, I'd love to make millions of dollars, but you got to earn those millions. You got to earn those millions, but I don't know. I catch myself thinking about a lot of different like avenues. I think I kind of want to write a book. I kind of want to be focused more on the written word lately and like write columns or something. And I don't know why, but it just seems like kind of a cool thing. I really love writing, and I love writing bits, and maybe that'll be the way for me. I don't know. It's kind of weird, Growing up is weird. Things don't always end up the way you thought they were going to end up. I thought I was going to be like a heavy drinking, like druggy, kind of Colin Farrell type famous guy. That was sort of my dream when I was like 19, 20. I was like, I'm going to be like Colin Farrell. I'm going to be starring in movies. I'm going to be drunk all the time. I'm going to be funny on talk shows. I'm going to date famous movie stars. And that's going to be what I'm going to be. That was sort of my dream when I was like 19. And then by the time I was like 23, I still kind of wanted to do that, but I was starting to focus more on like myself. And I was like, maybe I want to do comedy. Maybe I want to like be a comedian now. And that was sort of like a weird jump where I was like, fuck, I'm throwing away my dream of being an actor because now I'm interested in comedy. But then when I tried comedy, I was like, man, this is like really where it's at for me. I love doing this. I love stand-up. I love like everything about it. I love hanging out with other stand-ups. So it was kind of like, maybe this is the way for me. And I definitely think I'll be a stand-up comedian for the rest of my life. It's like my favorite way to perform. I love the crowds. I love the lights. I love the microphone. Like, stand-up comedy is where it's at. But sometimes I'm just like, maybe I'll just write a book. And if that book sells, then I don't have to fucking worry about anything. I can just keep doing what I want to do, which is my fucking tour of New England that I'm constantly on. And I enjoy it. And Schultze said that to me. He's like, you know what you like? You're having a good time doing it? Do it. And that was sort of a nice thing for him to say, because some people just look at you like you're crazy if you don't want to be Amy Schumer or Kevin Hart. And I don't know, maybe it's the not drinking, maybe it's like all the work I've done on myself with Buddhism and meditation and stuff, but I just kind of like don't need that anymore. I'm not like, I don't need the whole world to think I'm the fucking funniest guy on the planet. I just need the people who pay a few $100 a night for stand-up comedians to think that. And they do, and I'm having a good time doing it. So it's been 10 years. That's another thing. A lot of younger comics who have been doing it for 2 or 3 years, they're like, dude, you're so funny, and you got like an act, and you know, you got the world at your fingertips. Why aren't you out there fucking clawing at gigs and trying to like move to LA and be a star? And I'm just kind of like, bro, I'm in my 30s, and I'm fucking figuring out that life ain't all you think it's gonna be, and maybe just maybe I got a good thing going here, you know, headlining, I'm making decent money, and I'm very happy doing it, and I like the scene. I used to kind of look at guys who stayed in Boston or stayed in their Chicago or Toronto and be like, those guys. I was the same way when I was young. I was like, those guys who just don't have the balls, or they never took their shot. But then, you know, then you work with them, and then you go work with some famous comedian, and you're like, well, the guy in Boston is way happier in his life. You know, he's got kids, he's got a wife, he's happy. And then you work with some of these big stars, and they're kind of miserable, and they're kind of still climbing, you know. Someone who you think has, like, everything that you want, and they're unhappy because they don't have what the next person above them has. So that can be kind of, like, disconcerting, I think, and weird. But I don't know. If fame comes, you know, if I all of a sudden blew up off some taping I did here in Boston or some, like, sort of thing, I'd do it. I'm always like that. If people come to me, I'm much more like apt to to do things. Like I love being offered things. I love it. I think everyone in show business likes that, right? You know, not having to audition for something and fight for it, but just have someone call you and go, "Hey, you're talented. I know you can do this. We'd love to have you." That always feels kind of good. So who knows what the future holds, but I feel like that's an answer to a lot of your questions, because a lot of people sort of ask me that. They're like, what are you doing? What's up? And I'm like, you know, the goal does not have to be like on fucking Comedy Central or Conan, because not to be like sort of a downer, but those things don't really mean what they used to anymore, you know? And to me, I'd rather just make a living doing stand-up, so I'm pretty happy with that. But like I said, if it comes, it comes. I don't know if I told this story, but I thought it was super funny. My nephew, we were at a family dinner not that long ago, and my brother's gay. I've talked about it a jillion times on stage, about my brother being gay. And he, you know, everyone knows he's been out for many, many years. It's like old news in the family. Everyone's cool with it. Everyone was cool with it then, but we're still like an Irish Catholic family, so, you know, weirdness is going to happen. Like, no one's like, so Greg, who you dating? Like, you know, me and my sister are like that, and like the younger people in the family, but the older folks, the grandparents and stuff, they sort of just deal with it in like a little bit of a quiet way. Like, I don't want to paint my parents out as like unsupportive, because they're very supportive, but you know, there's still like Irish people from Boston who, like, you know, things just freak them out. So I think I could tell that, you know, sometimes they're like, when the subject comes up about, I don't know, him dating someone or something, you can see they just like are kind of like, do we really have to talk about this out in the open? It's like almost as if like he's, I don't even know, like doing porn or something. Like, we all know Mike does porn, but do we really need to talk about it at the dinner table? Even though it's not even close to the same thing. So it is sort of this like middle ground of like everyone's really tolerant of it, but at the same time, people can be a little bit like, don't ask, don't tell about it in the family, right? So we're having this like big family dinner. Everyone's sitting around chatting, and my nephew comes in and sort of like with a loud voice in front of everyone goes, Uncle Mike, are you gay? And it just goes like totally silent in the room. And this is the true story. I've been telling this as a bit, but this is the true story. So I go, did you say me or Uncle Mike? And he goes, well, if you're both answering, I'll ask you both. And I said, yeah, we both are. Like, kind of kidding, right? Just trying to lighten the mood. And he's like, I know you. My nephew's like, I know you're not gay. Let's go back to Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, are you gay? And everyone just looks at my brother like, what's he gonna say? Oh, shit. What's he gonna say? And my brother goes, what did you say? And he goes, do you date men? That's what my nephew said. Do you date men? And he's not being a dick about it. He's just asking. Little kid. My brother goes, yes, I do. And my nephew just goes, interesting. Walks away. I thought it was one of the funniest fucking kind of reactions from a little kid over something like that. Interesting. He's only 6 years old. And me and my brother had a good laugh of it over it on the way home, because I was like, yeah, Jerry, so interesting. Some people are very interested. So interested they lie to their wives for 20 years. So interested they go to bathhouses in the middle of the night. Some people find it so interesting they can't sleep at night. Just a funny way to be like, to discuss the word like horny or like in love or anything. Like, I'm so interested in this gay lifestyle. Just really made me laugh. I don't know. Now that I'm telling it, I'm like, that wasn't that funny of a story, bro. What are you doing? Another thing I was sort of talking about with someone was the AIDS epidemic. That was like an epidemic of my childhood and no one talks about anymore. But like, to grow up in the 90s with the AIDS education that we were receiving in the 90s was just over the top. Like, you're gonna die from AIDS. Like, I feel like my generation is still a little hung up on it. I think a lot of us, especially being like Irish Catholic in the first place and then doubling down on all that with like AIDS education, I think a lot of us were like sort of like freaked out about sex. Like I like personally, I thought I was gonna get AIDS the first time I had sex. I thought I might get AIDS from like this, you know, I was 16, she was 16. We're fucking like both from around here. We're both like virgins. And I somehow thought I could still get AIDS. That's how good they got us. That's how good the anti-sex education was in the 90s. It was like, you don't even have to have sex with someone with AIDS to get AIDS. You're going to get AIDS. Don't have sex. Just don't do it. That was by far the biggest like thing people said to us. But it's funny, it's totally come around now. So like now when I hear ads on the radio that are like, listen, I know AIDS is pretty much cured, but you still gotta wear a condom. You can still get herpes or get a girl pregnant. Like, no one worries about AIDS anymore, and I know that. That's what the guy says. He's like, and I know it, which is great, but we still gotta worry. I'm like, people aren't worried about AIDS anymore? Don't they know it's like a 99% chance that everyone on Earth is gonna get AIDS? Because I grew up in the 90s, and that's how we thought. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I'm telling you, I really like kind of thought somewhere in my like early to mid 20s, I kind of figured it out. I was like, I haven't gotten AIDS yet. I've had sex with all these women. I still never got AIDS. Maybe it's not as easy to get AIDS as they told me it was. Then I did some research and realized, like, it's pretty tough to get AIDS from a woman, even if she, you know, has AIDS, which is fairly unlikely in life to meet a woman with AIDS. But I wish I could go back and just like think about all the anxiety I had about getting AIDS. I remember like when I told my doctor, like right after I quit drinking, I had a lot of like, health issues, and I was doing a lot of like blood tests just to make sure everything was like getting back to normal. And the doctor, he's like, yeah, I tested your blood, you're totally fine, like everything's cool. And I was like, do you guys test for AIDS too? And he like looked at me like, do you think you have AIDS? And I was like, well, I don't know, I've had sex with like a lot of women. He's like, any men? I was like, no. He's like, any intravenous drug use? I was like, no. He's like, you don't have AIDS. And I was like, from a doctor. And I was like, what? I mean, I thought from like being a kid that, you know, the condom had like a microscopic rip in it. I was probably definitely going to get AIDS. What's the deal? And, you know, that's AIDS for you. But it's, that's the name of this podcast. That's AIDS for you. But yeah, man, it was definitely like a weird time to grow up. Where like, I feel like it kind of ruined my best years out there, like fucking, cause like there was always this like dark AIDS cloud hanging over my head from like 16 to 26. I was just like, well, enjoy this fuck, because it could be the one that gives you AIDS. I wonder if anyone else, I know a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are younger. We got a lot of older listeners. What is the deal? Like, what is your relationship to AIDS education? Because I know younger folks, like, they're just not as afraid of it because they didn't grow up with like that daily school. I mean, it was like every poster in school, like those, you know, guidance counselor type posters were just like, AIDS, it's watching you, and it's thinking about sticking it in your butt, and it's gonna give it to you. And if you get AIDS, you will die. And it's little kids get it, and old people get it, and everyone can get it. It was just like, they scared the shit out of us with this AIDS stuff. I don't know if it was because I was in some Catholic places, some Catholic schools, but man, was that shit crazy. Man, was that shit crazy. I've just been thinking about it all day. I can't stop thinking about it. Now I'm giving her like a weird voice, that chick from the beginning of the podcast. I just can't stop thinking about it. Thinking about AIDS all fucking day. I know younger generation doesn't really fear AIDS as much as we did because they use it as like a term of bad. Like, oh, this party's so AIDS. I actually hung out with a 10-year-old the other day. Don't jump to conclusions. He was related to me. He was my cousin's son. I played wiffle ball with him for a couple hours. And I noticed he made a shitload of autism jokes while we were hanging out. Like, shitloads of them. He's only 10 years old. And I was kind of like, at first I was kind of like, that's kind of like shitty quality for a human being to be making fun of autism all the time. But then I realized, like, when I was a little kid, I was like, that shit's retarded. That shit's gay. That shit's retarded. That shit's gay. You know, so it's just things change with the times. And, you know, we also joked about AIDS a lot. We were like, oh man, you're going to get AIDS. You know, oh dude, you licked the fucking, you licked your locker in gym class. Oh, you're going to get AIDS, you know? And maybe an older person would hear that from a kid and be like, oh my God, the kids are joking about AIDS? How much worse could things get? Oh my God. You know, but in reality, it's like you just joke about the words you're sick of hearing or sick of being told not to say or whatever. Like if this kid is in school getting like tons of autism education, or like, make sure you're nice to your friends with autism, or make sure you're nice to the kid with autism, or just make everyone make sure autism. The thing you're going to do in your free time is be like, fuck autism, right? I'm so sick of hearing about it. And I feel like that's kind of the same way kids go with like the N-word, like on Twitch and on YouTube chat rooms and all that stuff. Like you get banned for saying the N-word, and it's like the worst possible thing you can say. So then they just say it to like they don't even have a racial meaning behind it anymore. They just say it because they want to fucking piss people off and get a reaction. And it's weird. It's very weird. I feel like the internet is not necessarily the greatest thing. I've been reading, Reddit for like years. I've been on Reddit for years, but I'm a fucking fingernail clipping away from deleting the Reddit app on my phone because I feel like it's just gotten so negative, so toxic, so like everything's the worst, because of Trump and because of the white supremacists and because of the mainstream media. It's like no matter who you talk to on there, it's like doom and gloom, and that's just not the way it needs to be. And I feel like now it's like everything's so compartmentalized life-wise. It's like, all right, what part of the internet do I want to listen to? What part of like The newspaper do I want to read? It's very weird how people are, because I realized even myself, I'm like, if I'm only getting info from Reddit, I'm kind of not really getting the whole picture. I'm just as bad as anyone. I mean, Reddit is a little different because it's all things kind of broken up into more things, but I was kind of thinking that. I was like, I'm only kind of getting like a one-sided view here of what the world looks like through Reddit's eyes, and Reddit's viewpoint has gotten pretty fucking shitty lately, so maybe I should bounce. I've just been kind of hanging out because it's been my thing for so long, and I'm like so used to it. I don't even look at any other websites, but it's getting to be time, man. The YouTube comments, the Reddit comments section used to be like a place of like some of the smartest, most like unique insights, and fucking used to like just illuminate me. I'd learn things. I'd fucking see moments of kindness, and now it's just always shit. It's always someone being like, if you do that, you're gonna die, and like my cousin died doing that, and like, oh my god, we're gonna get nuked, like it's all over. It's just like, nah. I feel like part of this younger generation who makes fun of autism, they also kind of like want the apocalypse, because like they probably got sick of hearing about global warming their whole childhood, or who knows what they're sick of hearing. But it's kind of like, I remember doing a Twitter poll one time where I was like, do you think you'll see the apocalypse in your lifetime? And it was like 86% yes. And I was fucking shocked. I was like, are you kidding me? I couldn't see a single person when I was like 16 saying that or thinking that. I couldn't see a single soul. Maybe one or two jokers who thought it would be like a funny thing to say. But it spawned like a conversation. A lot of people thought that. And I was like, that's nuts. Kind of says something about how self-centered people are right now, to be like, yeah, we're the ones who are going to be the last. It's like, man, this shit goes on, and it always has. This is not even the first, time we've had a crazy president. It's not the first time nuclear war has been a threat. It's not the first time that there's been racial protesting that has gotten violent. None of it's the first. And it's still chiller than it's been even in the past 100 years. So people need to fucking relax, listen to comedy podcasts, masturbate, and enjoy their lives. So on that note, come see me at Capo in South Boston every single Monday at 8 p.m. if you're in the city. It's a super fun time, super fun show. No cover. You can just walk right in. They got food. They got drinks, really good food and drinks. I love the food there. You know I don't drink if you listen to this podcast at all. Literally this specific episode. And I'm not starting again anytime soon. No one freak out. It's just something to talk about, something to think about, But yeah, I'm at Capo. It's super fun. I just did it last night. It's fun every week. And, wanted to keep going. It's right down the street from where I live. I love the group I hang out with there. It's like simply a fun time and a fun way to work. So Capo, Southie, even if you don't come to our show, just go eat there sometime. I'd rather you came and saw me and saw the show on Mondays, but if you can't swing that, just go grab a bite there. Super good food. I'm not a foodie by any fucking means, and I like their food. So it must be really, really good. Other than that, I'll be at Laugh Boston this weekend as well, right down the street as well. August 18th and 19th, I will be at Laugh Boston right here in Boston. And, of course, CDs on iTunes, T-shirts at willnoonan.com, all kinds of shit. And thank you to the new listeners who've been coming on lately. Love you guys, and thank you for all the people who've been following on Twitch as well. We're having a lot of fun over there. So thanks for listening. And remember, no one told you they love you today. I do. Peace out. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers this morning, and his sister Sheila sold seashells by the seashore. Peter Barker, Peter Barker, Peter Barker. Peter Parker, Peter Parker. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Peter Parker, Peter Parker, Peter Parker. All right. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.